Good morning, everyone. This is the agenda we'll be covering today. We'll be talking about 365 E5, cloud security, or managed services, and why Insight. So let's go ahead and advance to the next slide. So that's fine. Okay, so an organization's attack surface is bigger than most people think. And addressing and reacting to the ever-changing global attack surface is a major challenge for most, if not all, companies. Let's consider our modern world for a minute. It's a place where every minute of every day, there are new opportunities created for innovation, communication, and collaboration. It's a world where every minute, new platforms, new services, new devices are launched to meet the needs and demands of literally billions of our users and people. It's a world where every minute, new possibilities for learning, exploring, and creating are unlocked. You know, when you think about it, it's pretty cool and it's pretty amazing, right? Now consider that same world where every minute new vulnerabilities, risks, and dangers are exposed, where every minute new attackers, hackers, and criminals are targeting the systems and networks and data upon which we all rely, where every minute new threats, malware, phishing sites are deployed to exploit, steal, and damage digital assets. That one sounds equally terrifying, don't you think? Well, fortunately and unfortunately, both describe the world we live in today, where the global attack surface grows every minute and where cybersecurity is a constant challenge and a critical priority for all of us, or at least it should be. You know, one of the main drivers for attack surface growth is, like I said, it's the rapid continuous expansion of the internet infrastructure and services. So as every minute passes, thousands of new legitimate hosts and domains are created that offer up this new functionality and features and benefits that everybody's looking for. But on the other hand, they also inject this whole new batch of entry points, vectors, and opportunities for attackers to launch malicious campaigns. So the bottom line is this. As every minute passes, new hosts and domains are created. At the same time, there's a multiplicative of new threats detected. They go hand in hand. You know, and the statistics on this are staggering. They demonstrate just how dynamic and diverse the internet environment really is and how difficult it is to monitor and protect it from cyber attacks. Moreover, these numbers not only show how sophisticated and agile these attackers are, but how they constantly adapt and evolve their tactics and techniques. Okay, fine. But what are you to do? You know, companies are compelled to, and they rely on these assets to conduct their business operations. But most companies have an incomplete view of these assets, let alone how they connect to this global attack surface area. As a result, this basically lays companies bare, exposing their vulnerabilities and begging for cyber attacks. So why is it that companies can't account for all their digital assets? Well, one big reason for this is the complexity of the digital supply chains. Many companies often work with multiple third-party vendors, suppliers, and partners, creating a complex web of interconnected systems and data stores. In fact, 70% of IT professionals indicated a high level of dependency on external entities that might include up to third, fourth, and even fifth parties. As you might have guessed, this lack of awareness has serious consequences. In fact, 53% of organizations have experienced at least one data breach caused by a third party. You know, and another contributing factor to this apparent lack of awareness is the rise of shadow IT. Shadow IT refers to the use of unauthorized technology within an organization, often by employees who are just trying to work around company policies and IT restrictions. Shadow IT creates a multitude of hidden vulnerabilities because these unauthorized systems and applications are most likely not properly secured, and they're certainly not monitored. Mergers and acquisitions can also complicate a company's view of the internet, of its internet access. When companies merge or acquire other businesses, they often inherit a large number of new systems and data stores. And quite frankly, it really complicates a company's efforts to secure all their assets. Factors such as digital supply chains, shadow IT, M&A all complicate and compromise the monitoring and management of companies' internet assets. And of course, we must adopt new technologies that increase our connectivity, our functionality, and productivity. But remember, as we do, the global attack surface expands constantly, deepening the vulnerability, complexity, and diversity of all our known and unknown assets. So in case you missed it, the takeaway from this slide is this. Every minute of every day, the global attack surface grows, and so does the opportunity for attackers to find and exploit all of our weaknesses, gaps, and misconfigurations. Next slide, please. Zero trust. What is zero trust? I know many of you are fully aware of the concept, but let's look a little deeper as to what's really entailed when we think about zero trust in an operation. So let's start on the left-hand side, and let's examine what it means to verify explicitly. So what that means is that each and every access request must be validated based on a multitude of factors, such as what is the user's identity and location? What is the device health of that user is using? What's the context of the service or workload? Are there any data classification policies? And there's another range of anomalies that pop in there that we also have to pay attention to. But the key here is that by verifying explicitly, you can ensure that only authorized entities can access your system and data. Any suspicious behavior and malicious activity is detected and blocked. Looking back at the last slide, you can see that by verifying explicitly, you're going to have more granular and accurate view of your internet assets. And consequently, you'll start to understand that connection to the global attack surface. And that reason is that that's all because you can monitor and audit every access request and data flow. For example, if by analyzing the data source that a user is making an access request for is considered sensitive information, you can force multi-factor authentication regardless of the current authentication state of that user by deploying a conditional multi-factor. That means, in a sense, there is that you think that asset, that resource is so important that requires additional authorization to get there. You can force that MFA to get there. Policies like these can prevent unauthorized users and attackers from accessing any of your data, let alone the sensitive data and systems in your environment. By the same token, by verifying device health during authentication, you can ensure that only devices that meet certain security standards, such as encryption, antivirus, patching levels, can gain access to your systems. And by the same token, it also prevents attackers from gaining access by exploiting vulnerable devices in your environment, including those devices that have been lost or stolen. By verifying service or workload context, you can prevent attackers from exploiting misconfigured or unused services or workloads. By verifying data classification, you can help prevent data leakage, data loss, or data tampering. And lastly, for anomalies, which are any unusual or suspicious behavior, those are blocked right at the door. You know, and examples of those would be someone using like a Tor browser, they're coming in from a risky IP address, they have multiple login failures, or there's something fishy about their location, or there's some sort of impossible travel and the like. By verifying explicitly, you can ensure that every access request is validated based on multiple critical factors, satisfying the zero trust authentication and granting the appropriate level of access. But verifying explicitly is key, but by itself, it falls short. Enter the principle of least privileged access. This means that every user, device, and service should only have the minimum level of access required to perform their tasks, and that access should be revoked when it's no longer needed. Least privileged access reduces the risk of data breaches, insider threats, and privilege escalation simply because unnecessary access to systems and data is removed or never granted in the first place. And I might add, it's essential to comply with regulatory and legal requirements such as GDPR and HIPAA. Now, here's an example. By using just-in-time access, you can grant time box roles to admins only when they need it, and then revoke it when they're done. This can prevent attackers from exploiting stale or unused credentials or sessions to access sensitive data and systems. By using just enough access, you can grant the minimum level of access to users and services based solely on their roles and responsibility. This thwarts any would-be attackers from gaining excessive or elevated privilege to wreak havoc in your systems. And the one I really like is this real-time risk-based adaptive policies that dynamically adjust the level of the user's access based on their assessed current risk level. So the way it works is just because a person has successfully authenticated or currently in and accessing the system, the scrutiny does not stop there. The risk-based policies continue as the user's behavior may dictate and roll back access or outright block the access depending on the severity of the user's behavior. And by the way, this could be a system as well, not just a user. So again, think of just thinking about some sort of one of your subsystems out there that's been hacked, and now suddenly it's trying to harvest as much information it can out of your system. By the same token, this adaptive policy would find and stop that as well. To accomplish any sort of data protection against out-of-band, to accomplish any sort of data protection against out-of-band vectors, you can encrypt, mask, tokenize data at rest, whether it's in transit or in use. In addition, by deploying data loss prevention and rights management policies, you can help prevent data leakage, data loss, or data tampering, and prevent attackers from accessing your systems through out-of-bound channels, such as email, web, cloud, and maybe removal of media. So all in all, the consistent, accurate application of least privileged access is a crucial step towards enabling zero trust. But the last core principle of zero trust is to assume breach. And there's certainly requisite actions underlying this principle, but it's important to understand that it's primarily a mindset. It's a change the way of thinking. What I'm saying is organizations should adopt a security posture that assumes attackers are already inside their network. Or at the very least, they should consider that interlopers can bypass their perimeter with impunity. By internalizing this assuming breach principle, organizations can shift their focus from preventing breaches to minimizing their impact and improving their organization's resilience. Because quite frankly, count on breaches, but it's a good mindset. This thought process goes hand in glove with the prior principle, least privileged access. Okay, so we start thinking about assuming breach. What do you need to look at? Segmented access. Restricting what network access by limiting segments of the network. Oh, I'm screwing this up. Pause. Okay, segmented access. Restricting what network access a user's system or device has by limiting what segments of the network they can access really goes a long way towards isolating and containing potential breaches. What we're saying here is that if you don't need to see it, you don't have access to it. If you need to access this system and this data store, you have access. You can see it on the network. If you don't need to see the SQL service sitting right next to it. So by segmenting access, you can apply a granular and contextual policies to control who, what, where, and when, how they're gaining access, and how they're using that access. And then, of course, you can enforce multi-factor authentication and strong encryption for all those sessions if need be. So, speaking of encryption, encrypt all sessions end-to-end. This can protect data from inception, manipulation, or exfiltration by attackers, even if they're on the same network. And lastly, this is where AI and ML really tip the scales. By using modern AI and ML, you can monitor and analyze and correlate all your network activity, user behaviors, device health, and application performance. It identifies and responds to anomalous or malicious events in real time. And it continues to assess and recommend improvements for your security posture and the remediation of any gaps and vulnerabilities. By adopting and assuming breach posture, companies can recognize their network is not on a secure boundary, and that they need to protect their data and systems at every layer and every stage. Furthermore, they should enhance their security capabilities, such as segmentation, encryption, and analytics, to minimize that blast radius for breaches and prevent lateral movement of attackers within the network. In conclusion, assuming breach is a key principle of zero trust, and that is in the fundamental adopting a proactive and adaptive security strategy rather than a reactive and static one. Here endeth the zero trust lesson for the day. Next slide, please. Okay, so here we're going to, so how does M365 E5 come into play? Well, begin with that foundation of zero trust. And I can tell you that of all those things that I said about zero trust and the like, you can count on E5 as a full embodiment of that principle or those principles. So zero trust is in. The next one is a comprehensive identity access management strategy or PASM. So what are we talking about there? We're talking about conditional access and adaptive policies. So For Microsoft 365 E5, conditional access and adaptive policies, they will provide a visibility and control over all your cloud applications and identity-based risks, and it fully integrates with the entire Microsoft Defender suite. So both types of these policies are methods of enforcing granular and dynamic access controls based on the context and risk level of each request and session. They allow you to find and apply policies that specify the conditions under which users can access applications and resources, such as device, location, network, or user group. The adaptive policies adjust the level of authentication and authorization required based on real-time assessment of the risk and trust signals, such as what is the user behavior, what's the device health, what's the threat intelligence, what's dynamically happening in the system right now. And one of the key features of this is the ability to trigger multi-factor authentication based on the signals and the conditions of each request. And under conditions of compromise, credentials force a self-service password reset. Reset that password within that day. So for example, when a user signs on from an unfamiliar location or device, this signal indicates the user may be signing on in a risky or compromised scenario, and that their account may have been breached by an attacker who is trying to access resources from a different location or device. Microsoft Entra ID conditional access can detect these anomalies and prompt the user to verify their identity with MFA before granting access. And I might add too, there's this thing called continuous evaluation that also continues to assess what may be happening in the world since the last time that user has gone through the authentication process. And if it suspects that there is some sort of issue growing where the user risk is increased, that security token can be revoked and forcing a re-authentication of that user. Extremely powerful. So along the same lines, another scenario is when a user requests access to a sensitive or high value application of the data, that signal indicates the user is trying to access a resource that requires a higher level of security and protection. They could be things like financial data, customer information, or intellectual property. You can enforce a policy, just like I showed in the other example, that requires MFA for accessing these resources, regardless of the user's location or device, and ensure that only authorized authentication users can access them. MFA can also be used in risk-based policies to automatically prompt for MFA when a request is deemed to be risky, such when the user signs in from an unfamiliar location or device, or when the user's credentials have been compromised or leaked. Having MFA triggered by conditional access provides a seamless and user-friendly experience for the end users while protecting the corporate's data and applications from unauthorized access. The next item here is multi-threat dimension. What we're really talking about here is that we have threat protection from all sides and all dimensions. We have threat protection telemetry coming in for users, devices, what's going on in email, links, and attachments. So what we're saying here is Microsoft has covered as many facets as they can of this surface to bring in the best telemetry into your environment and the best controls necessary to go ahead so you can assess your risks in real time and adjust your authentication and access accordingly. Risk-driven adaptive data loss prevention policies, I already discussed those a little bit, where basically we're constantly assessing, even though the user or this object has already been authenticated and they're actually operating and manipulating and moving through the environment, these risk-driven adaptive policies will continue to assess the risk of that user, and they will consequently adapt whether they will grant or deny access, or maybe even possibly kick that object out. The guide, combining compliance management, you can find all that in the Security Center and the Compliance Manager that will basically give you guidance across the entire certification process, keeping in mind that certification is a lot more than setting technical controls, but they give you the other policy type guidance as well. But another big one that I want to talk about is the advanced user and entity behavior analytics. Microsoft Defender for Identities leverages this type of technology. It's a cloud-based security solution that monitors users' identities and access in hybrid environments. And it uses advanced user and entity behavior analytics, UEBA, to detect and stop malicious actions at the user level. So let me stop for a minute. I'll just let you know what this is. Microsoft Defender for Identities, even though it's a larger package, there's an element there where you can install agents on your domain controllers, and they'll watch and start to gather information about how things are in your environment and who is acting what and when and what is normal and what is not. And when it sees these anomalies and things coming in, it will react accordingly. It'll react in a way such as start raising alerts and drawing people's attention, as well as being able to capture and bring together the appropriate artifacts for GRC type people to do the evaluation. So UEBA helps detect and respond to various types of threats, such as insider threats, compromise accounts, privilege escalation, lateral movements, and data exfiltration. So when a user performs an unusual or suspicious action, a signal is raised that indicate that user may be acting maliciously, either intentionally or unintentionally. So when a user exhibits a sign of compromise or breach, that user's account may actually be limited in its access or actually be cut off completely. Microsoft Defender for Identity use advanced threat detection and response capabilities to track attackers' movements and activities across the network. And as I said, it provides a timeline, a graph of the attack chain, showing the source target and the methods of the attacker. It also includes any of the artifacts that might have collected along the way that would be instrumental in being able to solve this case by a GRC. Microsoft Defender for Identities can also provide recommendations for guidance in how to contain and remediate the attack, such as isolating the affected device, disabling compromised accounts, or applying security patches. And lastly, you can't help but to think that this whole practice here is going to streamline and improve your operations overall productivity. Next slide, please. Minimizing your risk through endpoint protection. Certainly the first step there is if you have your identity and access management squared away, you're set. Just like I said, at the multi-dimension threat protection, advanced endpoint protection with ATP is one of those dimensions. The automated detection and response, very powerful in the sense that when these tools sense that there's issues and problems, let's say on that endpoint, they'll go ahead and attempt remediation, gather the artifacts, and report that up to a higher authoritative type body to address. When you think about device compliance and management, we're talking about being able to use the tool set to make sure all your devices are compliant with respect to all your policies. And then when you think of device management control, that gives you the leverages there to be able to again, apply your compliance management, as well as be able to react and address when machines are been in troublesome situations like they are lost and stolen. And a very important one, and this is tied exclusively to the E5 license, is the device local DLP classification and labeling. You know, one of the biggest problems that you can see when you go back and start to curate your data and classify and label your data and consequently apply the appropriate protection policies against it is actually the act of finding that data, making sure you're classifying it and get it done. The last thing you need, if you already know what you want to do in those areas, is to have new data and new objects being created that aren't labeled at birth. So what this is all about, device local DLP classifying and labeling, is that the DLP policies and the sensitive information types that have been defined in an organization's environment are present and are known by the workstation that the user is working on. So when they create a OneDrive object or SharePoint object and it matches that sensitive information type, it will be labeled on the spot. Now the user can override it if they need be, but the intent here is that as soon as this sensitive information is born, it's properly classified and labeled for its entire life cycle. Extremely critical. Again, think about this. All ties back into that minimizing and assuming breach. You minimize that blast radius, and the way you do that is making sure all your data and all your systems are classified accordingly. Next slide, please. This was an important one. So enable towards compliance. We have a managed service out there that basically addresses and looks at over 340 different controls across the entire M365 eSuite. And and basically with the intent here is to be able to satisfy the compliance requirements for certification. Now, what's interesting about this is that what you'll find is that if it's not happening to your organization right now, it's going to be happening in the future. Internal auditors and external auditors are paying more and more attention to what's going on in the cloud environment. They're looking for controls to make sure that all those things that we just talked about are not happening. So the thought here is that if all the tools are there and the guidance is there as well. If you're not sure where to start, go to the security Security Center Secure Score. Go to the Compliance Center. Load up a certification template. Be careful, they're expensive. There's some included with your license, but the other ones are a little more costly, so be careful with those. But look at the Compliance Center certification templates. You can come back and look and see where all your controls are and where they fall. And you can quickly come back and methodically go back and bring those up to speed. Now, if you're so interested, we do that as a service for you. But the fact of the matter is they're all in there, both the controls and the ability to validate and and allow them for auditing and assessment. Next slide, please. So all in all, what we see here is the entire Defender suite, including Microsoft Sentinel, and all the things that happen with basically Microsoft's own threat intelligence that they do just for as part of the partners in that whole security community. These things all come together, and they're very powerful. And when they're configured, like I said, if you go back to the last slide, if you configure all those 340 controls, and your secure score is looking good, and your compliance center is looking good, you didn't need to flash that slide. We can see where we're at. I just made a reference to it. Can we go? Okay, so so the thing here is that you can have the best set of security controls in place. Everything is running like a fine-tuned, oiled machine. But if your users are uneducated and they're unaware of the security threats and the things that they're responsible for, then your system is going to have trouble. It's no different than modern automobiles with all their safety equipment installed. If you're a really bad or poor driver, you can still crash the car and cause a tremendous amount of damage. So what's included with the Microsoft E5 security suite is its ability to conduct phish campaigns and educate your users. They're very effective, they're very powerful, and I can tell you, even the most sophisticated users, the most savvy security people can be fooled by phishing. And the only way to combat that is to keep phish always in the front of their mind. That means getting people through the proper education and then following that up with phishing campaigns to test to see how well they're applying that education. It's fundamental to being able to secure your environment and your platforms. If the end users don't understand the threats that are about, they will incur them. Okay. So next slide, please. So I just want to wrap up here, and I'll turn this over to Satya, and he's got a wealth of information that fills in a lot more than I have. But what we see here is that Microsoft's commitment to this entire ecosystem for cybersecurity, whether it's in the SOC center, they're talking endpoint devices, hybrid infrastructure, data, software as a service, it's all in there. And they just didn't bolt it together. This is all integrated. And I can't stress enough the importance of having all this information on a common service bus or communication channel that all these entities and things can share, and they share in real time. So when bad actors begin working, they run those things run at machine speeds. They're polymorphic. They change almost as they're running. You need something that basically is looking at them with the same speed and scrutiny as their intensity to try and break in your systems. It's often been said that the hackers only have to be right once. We have to be right all the time. And having a system as what Microsoft has put together in their ecosystem for security in their whole Azure and M365 platform, they address that, and they address that very well. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone, and I'll turn the platform over to Satya.
Thank you, Noel. Those were great insights. Namita, we can go to the next slide. So Noel kind of touched upon a few of the basic security concepts which are relevant across, whether it's your identity or whether it's devices or whether you're securing your cloud. Those principles, the zero trust principles, applicable across the environment. So I will touch quickly upon the cloud. When it comes to cloud, how do you secure a cloud? As you know, last few years, there has been a huge transformational changes in the way businesses are working. And cloud computing became a very integral part of businesses, irrespective of the size of the business, right? So because of this transformational change or paradigm shift, however you want to call it, right, ensuring cloud security has become very critical. If I have to define a secure cloud, how do I define it, right? It's a cloud environment which is protected from any unauthorized access. There are no data breaches and no security threats. That's how the secure cloud looks like, right? The three key important characteristics of secure cloud, if you have to kind of point them out, right? They are minimal misconfiguration and vulnerabilities, robust security guardrails, and swift threat mitigation. We'll talk on this more later in this session. Now, coming back to the securing cloud, right? When we are talking about securing cloud, it's a comprehensive approach, including three key steps, if you will, as you can see on the screen, right? It's a three-step approach. In the first step, you establish your security standards and controls that will govern your cloud environment. These standards could be derived from your organizational standards or generic benchmarks like NIST or CIS, or industry-specific benchmarks like PCI, High Trust, HIPAA, if they are applicable to your organization. So once you identify these standards, then you have to adhere to those standards. That's the next step. This involves basically assessing your existing cloud infrastructure to identify gaps and remediating them. So that's basically assess and remediate part of it. That's one path. The cloud obviously is continuously evolving, right? Evolving. You are not having an environment which is static. You keep adding new workloads. You'll keep adding new services. So when you are doing that, you need to put in controls to prevent any misconfigurations or vulnerabilities creeping in. This could be achieved in two ways. Whether you could define some policies to restrict these misconfigurations and vulnerabilities coming in, or you can embed these security controls into your deployment process using, let's say, infrastructure as a code if you are leveraging IAC. So that's the another path where you develop and protect your environment. So these two steps will take your cloud to a secure state. Now, the third step is to keep your cloud environment secure. That's a third step, which is continuous monitoring. Continuous monitoring, obviously, it's very crucial for detecting, responding to, and recovering from your security threats. This will ensure your cloud environment remains secure in the face of any evolving new threats or vulnerabilities. So this is the three-step comprehensive approach to secure your cloud. Next slide, please. Now let's look at a few things that you can do to maximize your cloud security. I'll just quickly run over this. First is define organizational security posture. This is similar to the identify step that we talked about in the previous slide, right? You need to basically define your organizational security posture based on, again, organizational standards or industry best practices or compliance requirements. After defining the posture, you need to start identifying the gaps in the target posture versus the current posture and remediate the gaps. And obviously, you have to enforce the security posture for new deployments. The second one is compliance enforcement. If your organization has any regulatory requirements, then you need to enforce your cloud configurations to ensure compliance with those regulations. Obviously, the examples are your PCI, HIPAA, GDPR, FedRAMP, etc. Right? This basically will minimize the risk of regulatory scrutiny and the data breaches. The third one is comprehensive visibility and continuous monitoring. Organizations are not sticking to one cloud anymore. They're basically going with multi-cloud or hybrid approaches. So you need to have a unified view of your entire cloud infrastructure, resources, and configurations across multiple clouds and on-prem. That way, it will give a centralized visibility to your security team to gain holistic understanding of the cloud environment, effectively detecting any anomalies or prioritizing remediation efforts. Similarly, you need to continuously monitor cloud resources, including your servers, networks, storage, or applications for potential security risks and misconfigurations. This real-time monitoring basically helps detect and address issues promptly, preventing unauthorized access, data breaches, or compliance violations. The fourth one is threat detection and threat intelligence. Threat detection is basically identifying and analyzing potential threats to an organization's security posture using advanced machine learning and behavioral analytics to detect malicious activities. It involves monitoring probably your network traffic, application behavior, or user activity to kind of identify suspicious patterns and potential threats or potential attacks. You also need threat intelligence feeds to stay updated on the latest threats and vulnerabilities. So you all know we keep getting these latest threats and vulnerabilities, and you need to get the feed to go back to your threat detection. This integrated threat intelligence helps security teams to prioritize mitigation efforts, faster threat mitigation, and protect against emerging threats, if you will. Right. The fifth one is automated remediation. You need to automate the remediation of some identified security vulnerabilities or misconfigurations wherever possible, right? As much as you can automate, you should be automating it. This automation kind of frees up your security teams from manual tasks so that they can spend more time focusing on strategic initiatives or prioritizing high-risk incidents. The sixth one is incident response. In case of security incidents, you would need actionable insights, if you will, and contextual information, right, for rapid response and effective containment. If you have a streamlined response process, then that helps minimize the impact of security breaches and protect sensitive data. Next slide, please. Now, we talked about securing cloud and maximizing your cloud security, right? Let's look at some of the tools that help you achieve maximize your cloud security, if you will. On the right, you will see all the security domains of cloud and other capabilities that these tools need to provide in order to maximize our security. I'm not going to go into the details of the domains and the capabilities, but this is just to give you an idea. So there are two kinds of tools that will help you achieve this, right? CSPM and CWPP. CSPM stands for Cloud Security Posture Management, and CWPP stands for Cloud Workload Protection Platform. Before getting into the details of what these tools offer, right, let's take a step back and look at different layers of cloud security. You all know cloud security is a shared responsibility between the cloud vendor and the clients. While the cloud vendor secure your cloud platform, the clients, meaning us, we are responsible to secure everything we do on the cloud. That includes the infrastructure and the workloads that are running on the infrastructure. Cloud providers and many other independent software vendors, right, offer this CSPM and CWPP tools to help clients securing their infrastructure and workloads. CSPM tools basically continuously monitor to identify any gaps in your organization desired security configuration versus the current configuration, whatever you have, right? And alert in time to remediate before any data breaches occur. CSPM tools also come pre-built with compliance libraries to verify that configurations you have put in are compliant to organization compliance requirements. Whereas CWPP tools protect your workloads that are running on the cloud, be it applications, databases, storage, DevOps, etc., by detecting your suspicious activity and alerting. The better way to understand the differences between CSPM and CWPP tools are, right? CSPM will help you plug in security holes and minimize your attack surface to prevent attackers from gaining access, to your environment, right? So this is basically at the infrastructure level. It will help you protect. Even though we would love to, obviously, we would love to close all the security holes so that our infrastructure can never be breached. In reality, that is not possible, right? So when the threat actors somehow gain access and trying to do something malicious in the environment, that is when CWPP tools will detect and alert organizations about the malicious activity that is going on. So CWPP tools come with threat detection and threat intelligence capabilities to identify the malicious activities based on the patterns before they become security breaches. So these are the tools that will help you maximize your cloud security. Next slide, please. Now, what is Microsoft offering for CSPM and CWPP? Microsoft offering is Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So Defender has it has a lot of products, if you will, right? So Nam kind of covered many of the Defender tool sets in the previous presentation. And Defender for Cloud is the extension of those tools. So Defender for Cloud will help you improve your organization security posture as well as protect workloads. On the right, you see the capabilities of the Defender for Cloud, right? As a CSPM tool, Defender will let you define your security posture, and your security posture will be continuously monitored to identify gaps. The way Defender kind of give you is basically it will summarize your security posture and give you a secure score. When you look at the security score, you know how your posture is looking like. It will also make recommendations and has capabilities to auto remediate any of the gaps that are identified. Defender for Cloud comes with, again, as a CSPM tool, it comes with many pre-built compliance libraries like NIST, CIS, HIPAA, HITRUST, etc. Also comes with governance capabilities to enforce your security posture, as we discussed, right? Once you define the security posture, you need to enforce. So Defender for Cloud will help you in that. And also assigning accountability to remediation actions. As a cloud workload protection platform, Defender protects your workloads across cloud environment. Let's take a few examples. I'm not going to cover everything, but just to give you an idea, it secures your servers through vulnerability management, file integrity monitoring, and just-in-time access controls. Defender also protects your entire database estate by employing attack detection and threat response capabilities. Additionally, it utilizes advanced threat protection and Microsoft threat intelligence to identify and prevent unusual or potentially harmful attempts to access your storage resources, right? These are some of the examples of Defender's extensive capabilities and features. The great news is Defender security capabilities, they extend beyond Azure. It is not just constrained to Azure. It extends to other clouds like GCP, AWS, or even on-prem environments. Because of this comprehensive coverage, your organization can consolidate your CSPM and CWPP needs into one single unified solution, if you will, right? Using my Defender for Cloud. Next slide, please. We looked at Microsoft offerings for CSPM and CWPP, right? Now, according to a recent survey, about 50% of all organizations, they use either 11 or more security technology vendors. Imagine when you have such a large number of vendors, right, generating security logs, you will need a consolidated you need a solution to basically aggregate all the logs into one solution, kind of giving you the single pane of glass for security teams to monitor and analyze all their security data. If you provide that kind of a solution, then security teams will have a holistic view of their entire security posture. Without this solution, teams will have siloed view of the security posture, right? If you are using different security tools. You'll also need advanced analytical capabilities to correlate security events coming from multiple vendors into security events, identifying some patterns and uncovering hidden threats. So SIEM is a tool which exactly does that. SIEM stands for Security Incident and Event Management. The best way to understand SIEM is, let's take an example, right? Consider a scenario where a phishing email infects a user device, allowing attackers to move laterally within the environment and gain access to sensitive data. And let's say your organization is using different security vendors to protect these different areas. Without a SIEM, security teams might only see isolated events. They will see a phished email, they will see a device that is infected, maybe the lateral movement, and the data that is being accessed. Manually correlating these events could take valuable time, allowing the attackers to escalate their attacks and compromise critical assets. With SIEM, these events automatically correlated to into a one single incident, providing the security team with a holistic view of the attack that is under progress. The contextual data presented by SIEM enables them to quickly identify the root cause, contain the attack, and prevent further damage. After identifying the threat, you need a SOAR tool to respond to the threat. SOAR stands for Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response. Obviously, as the name suggests, it basically focuses on automating the security tasks from incident response to threat mitigation and orchestrating the automation tasks, if you will. Microsoft Sentinel is basically both SIEM as well as a SOAR tool. It's a cloud native tool that kind of brings you all the benefits of cloud tools, if you will, including scalability and reliability. Being a Microsoft product, it seamlessly integrates with other Microsoft security products like Defender, all types of Defender tools that you have. It also comes with a huge number of pre-built connectors to ingest data from third-party security vendors. So if you do not have a connector, you can write your own custom connector. So that way it brings all the data in. After ingesting all the data from Defender suite of products or from other third-party security vendors, it leverages the strength of AI to correlate all the events and provide contextual data and remediation recommendations. Next slide, please. Okay, we have seen how to secure a cloud, how to maximize your security posture, what are the different Microsoft tools that are available, how Insight can help here. Insight basically Insight consulting services can help you with end-to-end security services, as you can see, right? Providing with best offerings, expertise, and guidance. Our team of experts, they can come in, conduct a holistic assessment of your cloud security and governance posture, identify any potential vulnerabilities, areas of improvement, and compliance gaps if there are any. After the assessment, our experts can help you work with your teams to remediate the gaps, identified gaps. Our team has a deep understanding of compliance frameworks, including industry standards like HIPAA, HITRUST, PCI, and FedRAMP. So we'll ensure your cloud regulation requirements are met. Leveraging our expertise in infrastructure as code, automation, and GRC, we can seamlessly integrate your security and governance measures into your cloud infrastructure, automating the security enforcement, codifying your security posture, and streamlining your compliance efforts. Our experts will also bring a wealth of industry specific knowledge, if you will, because we have been working with various clients. We'll bring all the industry specific knowledge to define your organizational security strategy and standards if you need help there. This deep understanding of industry best practices and regulatory requirements will ensure your organization security requirements are met. Next slide, please, Namita. Okay, let's quickly look at security operations center, if you will, right? Security conversations are never complete without discussing about SOC, the short form of security operations center. So every organization need to have a security operations center to basically detect, respond, and recover from security threats. There are a few functions that SOC need to perform. This slide kind of give you a structure. What are the functions that SOC need to perform and typical team structure for the SOC, right? On a high level, basically SOC need to perform few functions. One is 24/7 monitoring of the environment. That's one function for basically identifying anomalies or suspicious behavior. The second one is engineering function where onboarding to SOC or automating your repetitive security tasks or fixing your security policies if there are any gaps in there. So this is a second function, security engineering, right? The third one is threat detection, including investigating security breaches and responding to them effectively. The fourth one is proactively hunting for the threats. Instead of waiting for the threat detection to detect the threats, you proactively hunt the threats, looking for patterns, behaviors before they become breaches. So this is a quick overview of SOC. Go to the next slide, please, Namita. And there are various challenges. Let's quickly go through the challenges of SOC. Security is a very niche skill, as you all know, right? And we have seen organizations using multiple specialized tools for whether it's protection, detection, or threat hunting, requiring specialized skill sets. There is a huge shortage of talent in these areas, as you might have already faced. The other challenge is basically lack of industry experience and lessons learned is another challenge. Also, the cost effectiveness. It may not be cost effective for many organizations kind of to have this specialized team doing 24/7 monitoring, doing threat hunting with all the different skill sets. It may not be a cost effective proposition. And also the scalability and availability. You need to scale your SOC team along with your business growth. As your business is growing, your SOC also need to grow. So these are some of the challenges, right? Go to the next slide. Next slide, please. The good news is you have a managed security service offering, which is an option for organizations to address these challenges. Managed security service providers typically offer a wealth of expertise, scalability, and industry-proven best practices, if you will, right? Enabling organizations to achieve a more robust and cost-effective security posture. Insight provides one of the best of the class managed security service, which is purely built on top of Microsoft security tool stack that we discussed so far. And we manage end-to-end security for our clients. So that kind of wraps up quickly, if you will, right? How to secure your cloud, what are the tools, what are the services that are available. Now, look at we look at the holistic picture, including cloud as well as productivity suite. What are the services that are available from Insight? Namita, can you go to the next slide? So now, do you want to pick up this slide?
Yes, and stick around, Satya. So how can Insight help? We have a whole range and catalog of services here, and some of them are actually quite timely. For example, like discovery workshops. We actually launched a co-pilot readiness workshop that basically comes down and lets people try to start to understand what Microsoft Copilot's all about, and what kind of position are they in to be able to accept that type of technology into their environment. And of course, we have follow-on services as well that once you've made that assertion, that we can actually take you all the way you need to go with respect to securing and preparing your environment for AI. We have advisory consulting. We have architectural design. We have 6,000 architects at least and consultants that are well-versed across the entire Microsoft suite for technical deployment, for training operations, and of course our managed security services. We're all in, and we're here for the customer. And again, it's important to understand and look at the cycle that we have on the side here. We're talking about initiating opportunities by listening and planning and executing and being able to manage and realize that vision and the value of those services that we bring together. So we have again a whole catalog of services. We have a whole army of professionals that can help take you where you need to go, wherever that might be. Next slide. And certainly of relevance in modern day news and such, we have a ransomware readiness scorecard available. Reach out and we can put together and basically come back and make an assertion about where you're sitting with respect to your exposures to ransomware. Think back about all those exposures and maybe all those hidden exposures, shadow IT, hidden data stores, all the like. You need to boil that up and take a look at that and assess about where you're actually at. What kind of cybersecurity capabilities do you have? And what type of things you're protecting? Sometimes the best place to start is to try and understand what you have, and then you can understand how you can deploy that. And I can't stress enough, ransomware readiness is the topic of the day because people are out there looking for your assets. So at that, I think we're come to a final. So any last thoughts? Next steps. So here, we're there to protect your cyber threats. Scan the QR code, schedule consultation today. Reach out, our experts are waiting, standing by the phone. Thank you.